Good afternoon, and welcome to the 29th State of the Community Luncheon presented by the League of Women Voters of Humboldt County. I'm Sherilyn Hutton, co-president of the League. Co-president Jessica Schlachter and I will serve as your hosts for this virtual event. As we begin, as usual, I'd like to mention that the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. We never advocate for any political party or candidate. The State of the Community Luncheon was created to serve as our main fundraising event and to honor community members who might not otherwise be recognized for all they do for others. These honorees are nominated by the public, and there are always so many wonderful people and groups that it's a difficult decision for our committee to make. Today, we make a presentation to our honorees, and we hear from Supervisor Bass about the state of our county. In 2020 and 2021, the League planned to recognize Viviana and Eric Hollenbeck and Wanda Wallen for their contributions at our State of the Community Luncheon held at the Adorney Center. But COVID restrictions prevented that. This year, we decided not to wait any longer. So we're going to honor them today, and our State of the Community Luncheon is coming to you virtually from the Morris Graves Museum of Art. We want to thank the museum, the State of the Community Luncheon Planning Committee, and the League board members who helped with this. Board member Eddie Morgan, as well as Alyssa Norman and Sean McLaughlin, have worked out the details to make this virtual event possible. Not being able to have this event has had an impact on our budget, but thanks to the generosity of community members and League members, and by cutting costs wherever possible, we have continued to do our work, mostly in virtual settings. Co-President Schlachter will now bring you up to date on the League of Women Voters of Humboldt County. Jessica?
Hello, my name is Jessica Schlachter, and I've been serving as co-president of the League of Women Voters of Humboldt County for the past year, along with Sherilyn Hutton. Becoming president during an ongoing pandemic has been a fascinating experience. We all quickly adapted to meeting virtually, many of us going from using Zoom for the first time to quickly picking up the various controls and leading meetings with ease. As I'm sure many of you experienced in your own Zoom meetings, the past 2 years have been full of technical struggles, calls of "you're muted," glimpses into each other's homes, curious cats headbutting the webcams, and an overall feeling of camaraderie. Even during these unprecedented times, we strive to maintain our usually yearly tasks. In the League, we base all of the advocacy that we do on our positions, so it is vital that those positions are as up to date as possible in order to accurately reflect the needs of our local community. In the 2020-2021 League year, we updated our foster care, Eureka City government, hazardous waste, and public health service positions. In the 2021-22 League year, we updated our housing, land use, and library positions. League Vice President Molly Kate is spearheading a behavioral health study in order to drastically revamp our mental health position. Partnered with a variety of League members, local professionals, and people throughout the community, Molly is diving deep into what the needs of Humboldt County truly are when it comes to behavioral health. In November of 2020, we took our traditionally in-person candidate forums virtual and streamed them on YouTube. To date, they've received well over 3,000 views, allowing us to more easily reach community members seeking education about the candidates on their ballots. The feedback we received was great, and we plan to continue to make the forums available online to allow for the greatest audience possible. In the spring of 2021, we received notice that the building the League office was in was being sold, and after a long search and with the help of some great volunteers, we moved to Old Town Eureka in the fall, now sharing a building with League. In January of this year, longtime board member Carol Masterson passed away after a long illness. She was active with the League for approximately 40 years, including serving as president, but leading candidate forums was truly where Carol shone. Carol organized many forums over the years and made it look absolutely effortless. This year's forums are being organized by an entire committee, and they're still not sure how Carol seemed to pull it off so easily. She was a wealth of knowledge with a quick wit, and she is greatly missed by not only the league, but by community members as well. With a potential return to normal on the horizon, our league has slowly been getting back into the swing of things. We, headed by Bert Lochte, continue to assist the Bear River Band of the Runnerville Rancheria and the Weout Tribe with their tribal council elections. We're gearing up for candidate forums ahead of the June election, with candidate forums starting in May. They will be aired on Heat and uploaded online, so keep an eye out for them. Last weekend, board member Karen Price and I participated in the Perilous Plunge and raised $800 for the Running Discovery Museum. Despite the frigid water of Humboldt Bay, we had a fantastic time, got a few people registered to vote, and absolutely plan to do it again next year, hopefully with the majority of our vote in tow. And I've got to say, I find the juxtaposition of going from leaping into the 50-degree water of Humboldt Bay in the name of the league to giving a speech wearing a nice dress in a wonderfully heated building, then here 6 days later to be quite amusing. The role of co-president is really all-encompassing. As I enter the second half of my term as co-president, I'm looking forward to upcoming events and forums, and I hope that we can reach a happy medium in between in-person and virtual in order to reach as many community members as possible. It's vital to me that when the community thinks of voter education, the League of Women Voters is first in their mind as an organization they can trust. Remember, make democracy work and vote.
Thank you, Jessica. And just so everyone knows, Jessica won the Rookie of the Year award. It's now my privilege to introduce Virginia Bass, who's the chair of the Board of Supervisors. Virginia has spoken at our State Committee luncheons in the past, and we're so happy to have you back. So we welcome you here, and here you go.
Well, I got two. Gotcha. I thought it was like music to walk up to the podium. All right. What a year or two.
No, I didn't.
Here, oh, yeah. I was a bartender. I jumped in the bay so many times. I stopped. I decided that other people have that joy, and I'm the bartender. You might want to try that. All right. So, this is so weird. Seeing people that aren't mad. I mean, we do see some people still bored, but smiling faces, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. To be anywhere these days is pretty much a treat. And seeing people I haven't seen for a long time makes me feel good in my heart. And it's especially an honor for me because it's the last time I'm going to be addressing this group in any, or at least in the official capacity that I am currently in. Who knows what the future holds, but maybe I'll be part of the League of Women Voters. That could very well happen. That's how you get dragged into things, but it's a great group.
Virginia, could you be a little louder, please?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Wanda, you're really gonna have to learn to yell. She said, shake the room. All right. So the State of the Community was always one of my favorite events. It always brought a smile on my face to go to a room and you had this large expanse of people who normally wouldn't want to be in the room together in some cases, and who had very different opinions. So I think it was safe to say that the League had an incredible talent of pulling people together of very diverse backgrounds to celebrate what's good in the community. And also recognize that there's challenges as well. But then remember, challenges are just opportunities waiting to happen. I keep telling myself that. And I keep working on it, it's gonna happen. Considering it's been 3 years since we've been together, I was really struggling about how do you cover that period of time in a short talk. And I realized just how much our lives had changed, and it's hard to fathom how do you synthesize, how to explain the changes that we've all experienced in these last 3 years. It's mind-boggling and really difficult. So in my preparation, I started to look back at my old files, and I'm one of those people who keeps every speech I've ever done unless it accidentally gets thrown out. And I like to visit those throughout my career to see where I've been and how things have changed. And lo and behold, I had my original talk in 2012 that I did for the League of Women Voters. And I thought it was fun scanning it because some things are very much the same. And of course, some things have changed drastically. But it seemed like a fun way to start today by kind of drawing some comparisons between when I spoke to the league first in 2012 and where we are today. Back in 2012, our budgetary outlook was actually one of the bright spots. We had done a really good job digging our way out of the Great Recession and really making some good strides. And unfortunately today, it's not the same. And I think many of you in the room are probably aware, as is much of the state, that our budgetary outlook right now is unknown at best, and in the worst case scenario, could be an absolute disaster. The books haven't been closed since the 2018-19 fiscal year. That's like you not balancing a checkbook or even looking at your register for 3 years. You know you're able to pay your bills, but you have no idea whether the money's in there. You have no idea what's gone out and what's come in. And you don't know that your ex-husband or wife, to be fair, who you took off, or you thought you took them off the account, was still writing checks too. But you didn't know that because you never checked. And then one day the bank steps in, or in our case, the county. We had the state controller step in, and they tell you, you've got a huge problem. A problem that's not easy to fix, unfortunately. You know, what's worse for the county is that everything else budgeted, that we budget, is built on the end of the year totals we have from when the books are closed. So right now we're trying to do budgeting without having any idea what our financial output is. And it's really hard in good conscience to allocate funds to departments and good causes that truly need them because we don't know what's there. And it keeps a lot of us up at night. And actually, primarily one of the reasons I chose not to run, because this needs my attention. You know, we have some big issues that we have to deal with, this being the top. You know, as a board, we've tried to deal with this over the last 2 years, offered help, given assistance. Sometimes it feels like begging for compliance, but nothing seems to really happen. And yes, there's a lot of excuses and reasons being talked about, but the fact of the matter is the work as defined in government code has not been done. People at the state level are not happy with us right now. Because it isn't done, we've got some of the following situations that are really going to be impactful to this community. We're 2 years behind in single audits, which places more than $93 million in federal and state funding in jeopardy for local programs. We're 2 years behind on the cost plan. I never heard of a cost plan until I was in government. But what it does is it allows the county to pull down the state and federal funds as reimbursement for us providing internal services such as IT and purchasing to the state and federal programs that we administer. If we don't have that, we're basically doing it for free for the state and the federal government. We're 2 years behind in submitting our financial transaction report to the state controller. We're the only county out of 58 that are in this position. And maybe more troubling is interest hasn't been apportioned in 1.5 years, withholding vital revenue for schools and special districts at a time when every dollar counts. And in my mind, this can be construed as misappropriation of funds because those dollars don't belong to the county, they belong to the special districts. Our poor financial management has created opportunities for fraud and putting real dollars at risk. And maybe the most embarrassing of all, we need financing to build some of our projects that we have coming up or to finance facilities. So, you know, you go and you get a bond rating. When you go to Moody's and they tell you do not apply because what you get is going to be so bad and it's going to follow you for years, you know you have a problem. And it's, you know, our county's reputation is being marred, and I'm proud of my county, so this really bothers me. I do think the likelihood of losing all those funds is fairly low, at least I certainly hope it is. But the point is that we will lose funds. We have already lost some substantial dollars, and that we need to stop this bleeding. And I'm hopeful that next year during the luncheon, whoever it is that comes to speak to you is able to tell you that things are on the mend and doing better.
Yes.
Yes, I'm hopeful for change. In 2012, we were struggling in our airport with flights to just 3 destinations. We went to San Francisco, Sacramento, and of course, Crescent City. Doesn't everybody want to go to Crescent City? But it was helpful sometimes. We have a newly formed aviation division or department that works well with current economic development folks. And so we've got some like new life breathe into the program. At this moment, we've got flights to San Francisco, Los Angeles, Denver, Las Vegas, and Phoenix and Burbank. The bad news is the aviation industry is still very volatile, and with the prices of gas and the pilot shortage and the lack of a local marketing plan, we're soon faced with the loss of flights to Vegas and Phoenix, which is really, that's sad. But I'm hopeful that we can find a creative way to hopefully reverse some of those decisions. I can't talk these days, by working with some community members to do a marketing plan so that the airlines know we really have skin in the game. And we have reached out to the Lodging Alliance. They've not been receptive to our request, but I don't give up easily. So I'd like to think that we will be able to restore some of that service. And while I'm here, just thought I'd talk a little bit about civic engagement. It's changed since 2012, what can I say? Increasing the quality and quantity of civic engagement was actually on our radar in 2012. Back then, we wanted to look for different ways to bring the budget process to the community so they could get a better idea of what it is we do. So we had done a process with the Humboldt County Office of Education and Access Humboldt to host a simultaneous meeting in all 5 districts. So it was quite, it was challenging, and it was interesting, and we had people from each location, community members, able to comment. They heard everything at the same time. They were part of the process, and it was interesting. We did this for a couple of years, but we started realizing that it wasn't really increasing the amount of civic engagement like we were wanting it to. So then we began a program of taking the show on the road, so to speak, and we did the budget road shows. Some of you probably sat in on some of those, I would like to think. And in those events, we had various staff members and supervisors go to each county and have community meeting with round tables where our staff members sat, and community members came and were able to talk about how they wanted to see the dollars spent, specifically Measure S. And that actually that won the county one of the California State Association of Counties Challenge Awards. And what the Challenge Award is an award that the counties give to counties for best practices. And it's not just a flash in the pan. You have to make sure that this process is something that gets the results it intended. So that was exciting. But who knew that just a few short years later, the civic engagement was going to explode, thanks to a pandemic, of all things we weren't expecting. And I think everyone can remember those early weeks and months of COVID, where basically everything was shut down. You can't keep government shut down. You have to find a way to keep on going. And I have to say, I didn't even know Zoom was a thing. I thought it was the noise a car made into cartoons. But now it's a common term. You can't get away from it. Even your grandkids want to Zoom you. It's like, face to face. I missed that. So it took some getting used to, but little by little we adjusted to a different way of meeting. Over time, people got used to watching us on, from the comfort of their homes. Press *9 to raise your hand. Press *6 to unmute. And when I'm chair, at 3 minutes, I'm sorry, thank you, because I believe everyone should have the same amount of time to talk. I catch a lot of flack for that, but people got used to it. Efficiency in government and making sure everyone has the same access to speak to the board. So we worked hard to adapt and keep the county services going, and what I hope is the biggest challenge this community will have to face. I saw 2 things happening in regard to how this increased civic engagement. It made it easier for people who live in the further stretches away from the county to call in and be involved in the issues that are really important to them without having to drive to town. So that was a plus. It also made it much easier for people to tune in the morning and stay with us all day long and comment on all the items. My favorite comments were the ones that it started. Well, I don't know what this item's about, but this is what I think. And it started, you knew the names, I know the numbers, I know people by the last 4 digits of their phone, just saying. But we started to realize that, and the number of comments on the pandemic and our response went off the charts, as it did in many places. So in some ways, the increase in civic participation started to come at a cost of good governance. And I know that might seem like a strange thing to say, that too much civic participation could be bad. But what started happening is that we were finding, given how the agendas were arranged, that we weren't getting to the meatier issues of the day until well into the afternoon and sometimes early evening. And the problem with that is it's hard to make good decisions about big issues when it's late and you've been in meetings for 7 or more hours with minimal breaks. Often these issues centered around appeals, especially cannabis appeals, which are torturous and complicated enough as it is. Our meetings got longer, tempers got shorter. The word hangry, combo of hungry and angry, was a really good descriptor at times. And with Zoom, it was hard to take a break because you just keep cranking it out. Of course, there's a lot of civic participation regarding feelings different folks had around COVID. People were scared and confused. And COVID was something really new that none of us really knew. What do you do? And we learned along the way. There's a lot of passion flying around and a lot of really interesting things being said. People that were brought together in the beginning of the pandemic, then you found a very hard divide between people. And unfortunately, I think that really has started, continues to exist this day, which is too bad. Feelings and facts were colliding during civic engagement, which led to some really interesting meetings. But I have to say, overall, our community is really lucky. I'm not loud enough. Thank you, Kay. Our community is really lucky because I've seen other communities across the state and across the nation who have had it much worse. I have counterparts in other communities who have death threats, who their families have been threatened, and it's just really sad. So Humboldt County actually, I think we fared better so far than many of the other places. But, and of course, other downsides of the pandemic, community services being stopped, hospitals hit hard, we all know that, schools closing, and many challenges of independent learning for both children and parents, increased issues of mental health due to the extreme isolation, and businesses hit hard, especially restaurants and shops. Let's just say I'm so glad I'm no longer in the restaurant business. It would have been really hard to survive. And no, I'm not starting one after I retire. So that's the question that comes up a lot. But like many things, it wasn't all bad that came out of COVID. There were actually some good changes in the government. The increased use of technology made people more proficient, where they actually felt comfortable calling and taking part in government from their homes. We found that in many jobs, people can be just as efficient and maybe more so from working in their homes or other locations. Simple adaptations allowed for businesses to keep moving forward in the county. And most departments stayed open to the public with the exception of one. Departments became creative and everyone pulled together. And lastly, it actually generated a lot of funds from state and federal sources, and the stimulus dollars kept the economy going. In regards to civic engagement, I think what I notice the most now is that people have forgotten what it's really like to talk to others and to work with others. There's something to be said for in-person communication, where you see somebody's visual cues, you can watch their body language, you kind of can understand better where they're coming from, and you can have the back and forth conversation. And on Zoom, it was really easy to turn off the screen and not even listen. One of the staff members called it mute and ignore. Being chair, you don't get to do that. Nor would I ever. But perhaps more disturbing to me, one time I posted, posting on social media, it bothered me because it became the community conversation, so to speak. And I remember when this struck me the most was I reached out to someone who was upset, made a comment. I said, hey, we could get together at this time. It was like masked outside, at a distance or by phone. Call me, let's talk. Let's sure have a conversation so we can get a better understanding of where we're both coming from. And when I posted that, I got a response, not from that person, but from someone else that basically told me, you have no idea what you're talking about. This is the community conversation. This is where conversations happen. And I'm thinking, not in my life, it doesn't.
Right.
So I think we really, in many ways, disintegrated in how, I don't know if disintegrated is the right word, but we really need some work on how to talk with others and be respectful of others. And I think that's really missing, which is sad. But a little good news. There is some. Recently, thanks to Congressman Huffman, we've got some money. We got $5 million to replace the bridge on the trail, the Hammond Trail Bridge. I never say that right. And we also got $218,000 in federal funding through Project Rebound to update the county's comprehensive economic development strategy. As you can imagine, COVID kind of turned things upside down, so those dollars will be well spent. We've given significant raises, and we were having a hard time getting people even interested in working at the county. Well, there could be other reasons too, but for the money, we were really under market. So we have raised the wages. That could be a problem later if we don't have any money, but it won't. It will be my problem still, but I'm responsible still. We'll get through it, but it's an unknown, let me say. And pretty exciting, we are creating a $4.8 million grant program in partnership with AEDC and First Five for childcare services. And that's pretty exciting. And any of you know Marianne Hansen, I just want to give a shout out to Senator McGuire's Woman of the Year. She's awesome, so it's a program. And there's other amazing opportunities for economic growth in Humboldt County. Cal Poly Humboldt, it's pretty exciting. Potentially the Nordic Aqua Farms, offshore wind. We have a lot of really good opportunities right now. And it's actually not a good time to leave government when it's starting to look like fun, but I've learned that you can stick around as long as you want, and whatever you thought you'd get done, someone else will finish it. So I'm just excited to see things happening. One thing that hasn't changed since 2012, or I guess I could say in my 22 years of local government, whether city council or on the board of supervisors, is how well people who appear to be very different can actually work together. Councils and boards are made up of very distinct individuals who come from very different perspectives, very different opinions on things. They have different ways of doing things, different strengths and different weaknesses. But they actually work well together, which surprises some people, and I think aggravates others because they like to see friction and tension where it really doesn't exist. Sometimes it does, but usually not. Our former CAO, Phil Smith-Haynes, shared a metaphor that still remains vivid in my mind. He said most boards could be compared to a tasty multi-layered chip dip. For purposes of convenience, we have a 5-layer dip, not 7. And to paint the picture in your mind, let's say you've got beans, onions, guacamole, sour cream, and cheese. Doesn't matter who's what. The point is, while these foods can be great by themselves, and it doesn't seem logical they would work well together, but they really do. The distinct flavor of each ingredient enhances the others, and blended together, the creation is better than the sum of its parts. Is it perfect? Of course not. Every once in a while, the onions cause heartburn. And by the way, we all take turns of being the onion, so there's an equal opportunity. But all in all, it's a good thing. And I'll have to say, governance is messy. I never really understood that until I smack dab in it. And there's no doubt about it, and it's tough, but it's still been one of the most rewarding things I've done for my community. I know it's changed my life for the better. And I say that overall, I truly believe that is the case. It's given me a different outlook that I didn't have before. I've become the old sage, which is really kind of weird, but I wouldn't change it I wouldn't do it any other way. So thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts on the state of the county or the community, and I look forward to being in the audience next time around. I can minimize the walking back and forth. I will say that we have certificates up here for both Wanda Lowland and the Hollenbecks from the county of Humboldt, congratulating them on your honor today. President Anderson.
I wanted to thank you for your address, and here's a token of appreciation from me.
Thank you.
Candy.
Do I have to open it now? All of it. Thank you so much.
I think Virginia would like to present these.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I wrote the first one. This is a new process for me. That's not yours. I apologize. you.
You're welcome.
Virginia mentioned the size of the audience. And so even though we don't have our usual 400 people here, our honorees are going to be seen by, we don't know how many hundreds on the internet.
Exactly.
So Bird Lockheed is now going to present our honorees.
Good afternoon. It's my privilege to introduce to you our honorees this year. As Sherilyn said, they've been waiting over 2 years because of a pandemic to get these awards. We decided that was long enough. So I'm going to tell you why we think they are so special, and I hope you will congratulate them in whatever way you can. We often read about people who do something special in the community and whose picture appears in the paper. But there are hundreds of other volunteers performing untold numbers of deeds to help people and organizations in Humboldt County with little thought of recognition or thanks. Wanda Wallen is one of these. Wanda was born in Arkansas and lived in Colorado before moving to Blue Lake and then to Eureka. She was a waitress at Stanton's, worked in the sheriff's office for 8 years, and was a troubleshooter for PG&E Gas Service. She has lived in Humboldt County for over 20 years, working outside the home, raising a family. She has a son and a daughter, and also volunteering in many areas. She was a member of Humboldt Cattle Women, providing leadership as president and promoting beef by cooking for various groups. She was instrumental in developing a cookbook that was sold as a fundraiser for the Cattle Women. She is a member of the Redwood Empire Quilters Guild, where she has served on the board in leadership positions, including membership chair, and she is a skilled quilter who has shown her work in various shows. She participates in every part of the process of quilt making and has made quilts that have been donated to bring joy and comfort to many people through hospice and other community organizations. She has also served on the quilt show board, including setup, takedown, marketplace setup, ticket booth, and opportunity quilt raffle ticket sales. When problems arise, Wanda finds solutions and rectifies them, always with humor and grace. In fact, Wanda has always been a problem solver. She told me a story about when she was 15 and her parents went to Reno for a weekend for their anniversary. She wanted to rearrange her bedroom, but the space next to the closet where her bed could go was not long enough. So Wanda spent her weekend taking out the wall at the end of the closet and putting it back a bit farther down the wall, making the closet slightly smaller. With a little paint, she had her bedroom all arranged just as she wanted it. Since 2013, Wanda has been a member of Quota International of Eureka, a service club for women who wish to give back to their community. Wanda has provided leadership by serving as president, treasurer, assistant secretary, and newsletter chairman for the Quota newsletter. Wanda was chosen as the Quotarian of the Year in 2016 when she was recognized for her selfless devotion to others and her willingness always to go above and beyond what was expected of her. A fellow Quotarian said of her that she not only has the desire to make things better, she gets in and gets it done. The Cancer Society has been a beneficiary of Wanda's help, where she's been a board member of the Seas Community Fund, which sells Seas candy at the Discovery Shop. This fund benefits local cancer patients. Wanda has been a leader and a dedicated volunteer in the sales room and has worked with others to coordinate schedules and to file necessary reports. She has written a newsletter for the group. She provides leadership as well as being a problem solver. Wanda lives in the freshwater area of Eureka, and this may be where she has spent the most time volunteering. She's been a member of the Freshwater Community Guild Grange for at least 35 years, most of those as the treasurer. She says she's not a CPA, but she has been their bookkeeper for all that time, obviously doing a good job. Please bear with me as I use Grange, Guild, and Community Center interchangeably for the organization and building. This is a story too long for me to relate right now, but I'm sure Wanda will tell you if you ask her. Wanda's been involved in so many of the Guild's projects, often raising money when she saw a need in freshwater. The Guild has helped Garfield School with building and parking lot needs. She has worked with the Booster Club to raise money through a Dutch auction. She's there, at least she was before the pandemic, to raise money by serving breakfast once a month at the Grange. She has personally helped with repairs in the building, using the skills she perfected working with PG&E and through a course at College of the Redwoods. She helped raise money for the speed bumps in freshwater. She's even led exercise classes for seniors through the Guild. When Wanda learns that someone needs assistance, she is the first to volunteer her services. She and her family made friends with Amiko, a Japanese widow of a World War II veteran. For about 30 years, Wanda and her brother helped her, drove her when she needed groceries or to get to appointments. Wanda drove her to Santa Rosa when needed, took her to bingo all the time, helped with her yard work, and made her part of her own family, Amiko's only family in the United States. Having welcomed her into their family and given her comfort and happiness for years, Wanda, her brother, and sister-in-law were there when Amiko died, a month before her 99th birthday in February. Wanda has helped at Mercy Haven in Blue Lake, as well as the launch pad in Eureka. She was an advocate and then a chaperone for the honor flight of veterans to Washington, D.C. a few years ago. Many friends and elders have been appreciative recipients of transportation, meals, and a helping hand. Wanda likes networking with people, and she is good at talking with people to help them solve problems. She has helped to have the Grange open on holidays and special occasions, making it a true community center. A friend said of Wanda that she is kind, energetic, unafraid, and effective in everything she does, and that any gathering is enhanced by her positive and happy presence. She herself is a community treasure who loves Humboldt and who is clearly dedicated to making life happier and better for so many in her community. It is our very great pleasure and honor to award our 2022 Civic Contribution Award to Wanda Wallen, Community Volunteer Extraordinaire. I'd like to invite you, Wanda, to come up to receive your award. This is your tray. The leaf is, it's hard to read it on there because we're seeing ourselves, not at the mirror. But anyway, for all of your contributions to the community, thank you so much. And you have a few minutes to respond if you want.
Okay. What I wanted to talk about was the groups that I belong to. I'll just talk about a couple of them, but first of all, I want to thank you guys and everybody that nominated. I get all choked up. Nominated me. But I want to talk about, like for instance, the Quilters Guild. They help other organizations. They donate quilts to the veterans and hospice, dialysis, Red Cross, and excuse me, North Coast Children's Services, different places. And so by doing that, those quilts mean so much to everybody. And they, like one thank you note we had recently. The man said that God, that he was a veteran and he was on hospice, and he said, we got his quilt, and he says, I want to be buried in this. Anyway, they mean a lot to the people, and they also donate money for Food for People, Adult and Teen Challenge. They kind of partner with them during the quilt shows. Healthy Moms, they donate money and supplies so that those moms can learn to quilt in different fiber arts groups. So what that does, that organization has the people that work in it, and it all ripples out to everybody else. And then in Quota, it's a really small, 7 or 8 now, very small group, used to be big, but they donate every month. We try to donate to Youth Service Bureau, the Launch Pad, which is a place where kids, they come from troubled homes, and they would otherwise, who knows, be on the street or whatever, but they live there, and they got a big donation a few years ago and bought the building, a fourplex next to them. And so those kids that would otherwise just be lost in society, they get direction, they have their chores and sharing and responsibilities. They have to either go to school or work. And when they bought the house next door, they were able to not just say, you're 18, you're out. They get to transition like into an apartment and share it with others. So it's pretty cool. But we donate to them, and every holiday we put together things for them, like for Christmas and Easter and everything. And so that's Quota, and we also have worked with Mercy's Haven and Blue Lake, where mothers that have had drug problems, that they've been through rehab, and they can live at Mercy's Haven and have their child there, if they have a child. So, and matter of fact, one, graduate from Mercy's Haven lives next door to me now with her child, which I've known now for 5 years. And, she's doing great. She did have another baby, and one girl that was at Mercy's Haven is a paramedic. So she might save your life someday, but otherwise she was on a bad road to, an unsuccessful life as well as her child. Anyway, and Quota also gives out scholarships every year. And, we used to do a fundraiser, Bunko, and of course with COVID, we can't do that anymore. So, but we have been fortunate enough to be able to raise money, and we give out scholarships. And so when you think about, you see so much like homeless people or people begging, and you think this world has had it, well, when you meet some of the kids that are getting scholarships, they're amazing. So there's, that's still out there. Amazing people, amazing kids. And then the Freshwater Drainage and Guild, it's kind of gone back and forth. Like she said, I've been in that a long time, and the building's 150 years old, and so we work on that and have the breakfast every month, which COVID put a stop to that, as well as our fundraising. And what the Freshwater Guild, they do stuff, and Bird mentioned it. We raised money for speed bumps. We talked to the county about them, and we had to get permits, and some people donated their services, but we had to raise quite a bit of money to put speed bumps in Freshwater, because a lot of the cars would go through really fast, and kids would get out of school and they're walking along the road, and so some people complain about the speed bumps, but you know, it slows the traffic down and some of the kids have to cross the road, and so it's maybe better for them. And maybe someday there will be also a pedestrian sign or something, solar powered, I don't know. But anyway, it's made it safer for them. And then the school, we partner with them, like Bert said, and with the Dutch auction, so that gives their booster club money for the kids to be able to do things at the school. And they also use our parking lot, so some kids just cut through the parking lot to go home instead of having to go out on Freshwater Road. And then lastly, I was going to talk about C's Community Fund. And Debbie here, her sister was in it for years and years, and Rosie volunteers there. But they sell C's candy to raise money for cancer patients to be able to travel. So if they don't have money to travel, they can come in, fill out the forms, and get their doctor to say, yeah, they're traveling, and then, you know, and we give them money to help them travel. I mean, we can't pay the whole travel bill, but we do. So anyway, these organizations, they're one in themselves, but everything they do ripples out to other places for the whole community. So,
Thank you.
Thank you again, Wanda, for all you do. The Blue Ox Historic Village and School had its beginnings in 1985 when Viviana and Eric Hollenbeck incorporated it as a nonprofit on the site of the Blue Ox Millworks in Eureka. Eric Hollenbeck was born in Portland, Oregon, but was raised in Eureka. Viviana was born in Argentina, raised in Southern California, and moved to Eureka in 1975. Together, they have 3 daughters who laugh when they say they didn't get dolls to play with. Instead, they received hammers and other tools. Eric left school at 14 years old, and at 15, he started working in the woods. At 19, he was drafted into the Army and served in Vietnam as a radio man. After less than a year, he was sent home when his father died to support his mother and younger brother. He went back to work in the woods in Humboldt County. In 1973, Eric bought a piece of derelict property on Humboldt Bay with a $300 bank loan and a leap of faith from the local building department. He turned it into a salvage logging company that has become, over the years, a full production millwork shop, smithy, foundry, apothecary, print shop, workshops for ceramics and stained glass, and a fabric studio. Now on the same property is the nonprofit organization that encompasses a working history museum, a high school for at-risk kids, a veterans program, and a radio station. Eric talks very honestly about his dyslexia and the fact that he didn't learn to read in school. Because our education system did not serve him well, he understands students who struggle in our schools now. He says, because I'm one of those kids that quit school, I can work with them because I understand them. I've got empathy for them. I couldn't read. That's why I left school. They kept telling me I was stupid. Eric is not stupid. He is very smart. And he knows how to relate to those kids. The result of this is that the Blue Ox School works with at-risk students who learn skills and develop pride in making things with their hands on antique machinery in an amazing workplace. Eric is a master craftsman, and with him at the helm, students learn the joy of craftsmanship. A few years ago, a group of his students were invited to a conference in San Francisco to showcase what they were learning. Their presentation was so successful that they were invited a second time, the only group ever invited back to the conference. Viviana and Eric are partners in their business and in the nonprofit they formed. The Veterans Program they developed helps veterans return to civilian life by finding a new identity through satisfying work that restores their self-esteem and pride in what they can accomplish. Their first project was to build a replica of the hearse that carried President Lincoln from Washington, D.C. to Illinois. To do this, Eric had to solve a number of problems because all he had to work with was a photograph and an invoice giving the size of the wheels. The veterans successfully built the hearse, and many of them were flown to Illinois to see the procession that reenacted the hearse bringing President Lincoln home. The pride in what they had made helped them to redefine themselves in the civilian society they returned to as veterans. Eric has always been a problem solver, making new parts for machinery when necessary, and learning to replicate the gingerbread found on so many of the old Victorian homes in Eureka and throughout this country. When he discovered he needed a catalog of his products, he decided to find an old printing press and printed his own catalog. Eric may not read well, but he is a storyteller, and he recorded a number of poems and stories about his time in Vietnam. Those stories were made into a play, Radio Man, by playwright James McManus. It was produced at Del Arte Theater in Blue Lake, where many of you may have seen it. Seeing it helped me to understand better what veterans face on the battlefield, and then when returning home to civilian society. The theater and other buildings on the site of the Blue Ox Historic Park have hosted many concerts, dramatic productions, discussions, and other events which have included a haunted house and a May Day celebration. Visitors come from all over the country for tours to see a historic cabin, bunkhouse, and cook shack, as well as the blacksmith shop, the pottery and glass workshops, the foundry, and the family of working machines that date from 1866 to 1948. A self-proclaimed Jippo, or I hope I'm pronouncing that right, the old school slang for independent lumberjacks, Eric has pulled most of the antique machinery out of the blackberry bushes and from abandoned sawmills. I got all the junk nobody wants, he says. Eric is a craftsman and the operator of the machines, but Viviana is by his side, complementing his work by doing all the organizational and the paperwork things that are not easy for Eric. They are truly an amazing team. All of these things I've mentioned were the reasons we chose Viviana and Eric and their Blue Ox Historic Park and School for our award in December of 2019. But since that time, another really exciting project has emerged. I'm sure most of you are aware of the Craftsman series to be featured on Magnolia Network. The first episode was shown here in Eureka last month with a red carpet reception to honor Viviana and Eric. This first episode shows Eric, Viviana, and their daughters restoring the old trolley that ran in Eureka years ago, giving the trolley a new life as a beautifully crafted piece of history. Eric speaks about his dyslexia in this program, and Viviana says they have received a great deal of mail thanking him for being willing to talk about it. With 8 more episodes, this series is just one more feather in their caps, bringing fame to Humboldt County, promoting craftsmanship as an honorable profession, speaking honestly about dyslexia, and featuring our beautiful part of the world. Viviana and Eric credit the city and the community that raised and nurtured them with allowing their business and nonprofit to grow as a community asset. They love Humboldt County and are proud to give back through their efforts. It is our very great pleasure and honor to award our 2022 Civic Contribution Award to Eric and Viviana Hollenbeck of the Blue Ox Historic Park and School. I'd like to ask Eric and Viviana to come forward to accept this award for themselves and for Blue Ox Historic Park and School. which the league is honoring that. Honoring you for all your civic contribution awards. Efforts. I'll get this out of your way, and you can say whatever
Me go first. Okay. I was thinking about what a joy it was going to be to come and be in this incredible building. To me, it represents one of the really significant parts of this community, and that is that we all honor our past in our beliefs and our actions and in our architecture. So for Eric to grow up here and for me to be here for 45 years now, it was the nurturing environment that allowed us to maintain that, those attitudes. And then now we're in a position where we are giving back to not only our community by doing all these historic buildings, but we're raising the consciousness of the larger community with the TV series. So thank you to this community.
Thank you.
I know that you said that you don't promote any political agenda, but I think it's very important that Viv and I state our political views here. We vote yes on everything, no on everything else, and whatever's left over, maybe.
This concludes our program today, but we want to thank you, whether you're here virtually or in person. It's been a great State of the Community luncheon, and I've been over those speed bumps slowly. I've seen the play, The Radio Man. We are a community. And it's so wonderful we get to honor each other. Jessica?
We would like to invite everyone to the next year's State of the Community Luncheon. Hopefully it will be in person. We plan for Friday, April 21st at the Adorney Center. So we hope to see everyone there.
Thank you for coming.
Would you give our recipients, each of them, one of the vases of flowers? Those are gifts for them to have on their dining room tables or whatever.
No, those are Ukrainian.
Ukrainian flowers, right.
Thank you.
Yeah, those are, you know.
Yes.
And they're grown in the sun.
At the podium.
Well, right, how about right first?
And hold your.
And I want